I think you might be shocked by this stat, but there is 42% of young women today that they struggle with pornography. And whether you have watched pornography or you have seen it, whether you have never seen it, this is affecting our culture today. And why? Because the acceptance that we allowed in our culture of pornography has affected the way we see sexuality and the way we see each other as humans. And my story is, I was one of those stats that belong to 42% of women that struggle with pornography. And it's just, it was more of like a progress in my life and things that happened in my life that led me to that. I remember I was about 9 years old, a little kid. Imagine, I was looking at pictures the other day. I was 9 years old, a little kid, and this is what I'm saying, it affects everybody. And I stumbled upon a magazine and I saw that. And then later on, I was on a website, I was on internet, and there was a pop-out, and there were adult games that I started playing as a young kid. And then just remember, that led me to going on a dating website and doing things that I never thought. And I think I was around 12. And then by the age of 14, I was starting to watching pornography, and I became addicted to pornography and masturbation. And I realized that there were things that happened in my life that my mom left when I was about 5 years old. She left to work across the world, and I felt abandoned. I felt a sense of abandonment, and I think we look at the kids and we are like, oh, how is this happening? It happens that they had some sort of wound and they didn't even know what they were doing. They were exposed to it. Nobody told them about it. And they started doing it without even thinking. And I want you to be aware of this, that this is what's happening in our culture today, regardless if it's men or women. I've heard this, and I want to share that with you. I've heard that women that talk about this, they should never talk about it. They should never talk about that they were dirty one day, that they something happened to them. You know, like it's like, oh no, don't talk about this, Helena. Don't talk about this. I don't hear about it because that's dirty. Like women should not talk about this. Like that you had previous relationships. I didn't know Jesus. I didn't know him. And this is what happened in my life. Who should have I come and talked to? People would make me ashamed for that. But I'm going to tell you one thing. I'll tell you one thing. What do you guys think if you think about Paul's story? Why do you think it was powerful? Why do you think that a story of a woman that was caught in adultery and Jesus saved her life? Why do you think that story was so powerful? You know why it was powerful? It was powerful because it wasn't sugar-coated. It was the real. And if you expect a sugar-coated story today, that's not my story. If you expect a sugar-coated story, you can go and leave right now. Because that was not my story. It was the story of lots of hurts, lots of things that happened in my life. And I was broken sexually. Like sexual brokenness happens around us. And we need to be aware of that, and we need to deal with it. And I'm thinking back in my life, and there was a time where I was watching pornography a lot, and I wanted a female example in my life. sadly, pornography became something that, and the women in pornography that I saw, that I thought this is how women get treated. This is kind of like how they were abused or how they were treated there on a movie. That's what I thought, that's like the human right. That's like the woman right. What do you think it did inside of me? What do you think it did to me? It literally rewired the way I thought about people. It rewired the way I saw people, the way the people I was hanging out with, everything. The way I seek relationships. I wanted to share a quick story with you of how pornography can affect our friendships. I was about, I think I was 16 or something like that. And I went for a drive with two of my friends. They were my guy friends and male friends. And we went for a drive. Like these guys were my good friends. And I knew they were watching pornography on their phones in the car. I was like, okay. And that was a little shock for me at first. And then what happened is what they saw in the videos, they wanted to do in reality. And they wanted to pay me. My friends, this was my friends, they wanted to pay me. So I showed them my body. And this is the reality of what's going on today. Behind the scenes, that we don't want to talk about this. But I was growing up in a healthy family. I would say in a quite healthy family. My mom left, but I love her. She's a great woman. I love her. But I was exposed to this, and I didn't know what to do with it. And then I was in this situation. My friends are doing this. And I think this is so sad. This is so sad. This is what's going on. I wanted to feel loved and accepted. I wanted a relationship that's going to be genuine and that's what I longed for. But I felt so insecure with myself, seeking things that I thought were going to fulfill me, but they never did. I was just in so many toxic relationships because I didn't understand relationships. Nobody sat down with me and say, Helena, you know what? Like there's going to be, or even like about sex, I think it's so important to our kids talk about sex. Do you want their friends to start talking to them about sex or them to see it in pornography, or do you want, I feel like this is so important. Because this is what happened to me. I didn't know how to deal with it. I wish somebody would sit down with me and tell me. And I was confused. I didn't know. I remember there was one guy that I was dating, and I thought he's the love of my life. And he was cheating on me. And when I found out that he was cheating on me, I felt so small, so broken. And I know this guy, he was watching porn all the time. He asked me to watch it with him, and it was just so bad. But you know what? When you're in that zone, in that fog, you don't see clear. I didn't know Jesus. Well, how would I differentiate good and bad? Don't. You don't care about morality. You just care about the things that make you feel good. But then that man that I thought, wow, this is such a great guy, he cheated on me. And I took my stuff and I left, and I was so devastated. I was just just feeling so insecure and so bad about myself. Just like, wow, is somebody gonna ever love me? I don't understand relationships. And I remember my friend, my really good friend, she invited me to a talk about love. And I thought she's crazy. Right after I broke up with this guy, my really good friend, she comes to me and, you should come to talk about love. I like, what? Like, did you just, like, do you understand what just happened to me? I don't feel like hearing anything about love. I'm like frustrated. But she was my really good friend. And she persuaded me, and I'm so glad I went. Because I saw Jesus for the first time. I remember there was a couple, and they were talking about love, and they were talking together. They were united, and I know they were free from pornography, and they were real. They were not sugarcoating anything. They shared their story the way that it was. They shared their struggles, but they shared the overcoming with Jesus. How would it sound, overcoming with Jesus without a struggle? It wouldn't impact anybody. There's a struggle, and I saw them, and I was sitting in the back, and I was thinking about my life. Everything was so heavy in my life. I didn't understand relationships. I didn't understand anything, and this couple was just so genuine and very real. And I met Jesus for the first time because they exemplified Jesus. And I was just, then I pursued them, and they really helped me and walked me through faith. And that was a huge breaking point in my life. Unfortunately, it wasn't a complete part of my healing. There were multiple things that happened in my healing, and in the way that I needed to learn how to see relationships again. I was single about a year and a half after, and then I met Sean. I remember when he shared with me that he struggled with pornography for the first time. And I was so afraid. I was so afraid because I knew how it destroys the way I look at people. And I was so afraid about our marriage. I knew that this is the man that God had prepared and has for me, and I was so afraid about our marriage already. And but we, you know what? Jesus has met us in this dark place. And there were multiple things that happened in between, but I remember when we became real with each other. We disclosed everything. When we disclosed everything about our pain, we didn't wear masks. That's when there was a connection. And that's when Jesus can enter in and really start doing some healing. When we stop wearing those masks. And that was such a huge breaking point in my life, that I was able to finally share with somebody that I struggled. And then I went to a counselor. She helped me to understand the abandonment that I felt when my mom left. And then remember that I started going to a support group of women that I was able to be so open with. And there's so much freedom in sharing, because you know what? And without a connection, there's no connection without vulnerability. No connection. See, if we just talk about weather, what kind of connection is that?
And it rains all the time.
And I found that. I was so afraid to share it with anybody. But I found so much connections and freedom and vulnerability is sharing. And there's no condemnation in Christ Jesus. There's no shame, no condemnation in Christ Jesus. So I would like to Sean and I would love to share some just in 1 minute, some of the things that we have experienced being free from pornography today. So one of the things is we have been able to accept and acknowledge the grace of God. Realizing that that He truly loved us even while we were sinning. And I believe that we have all, I've been there last week, yesterday. We make a mistake. We sin. God forgives us. He gives us another chance to dust ourselves up and move on. Our intimacy has grown into what God has created it to be. Selfless, unifying, and fulfilling. Looking at people without fantasy and being able to see them for who they are. Beautiful creations of God. I believe all human beings are beautiful. We no longer hide the truth from those closest to us. This has led us to greater family unity. More focus and energy that allows us to enjoy work and life balance. So those ones are just a couple of them, but there's so much more as you discover more about this. And we thank you so much. Thank you for listening and thank you for being here. I want to thank you, New Heights, so much because they're not afraid.
Yes.
They're not afraid to raise this topic of pornography and start talking about it.
Amen.
Thank you.